Hello, this is a walkthrough of the lab entitled Using the Cloudant NoSQL Database. So at this point we've assumed that you've already downloaded the zip file containing the scripts and examples used in the lab, and that you've already installed curl, the command line utility to make HTTP and HTTPS calls, and that you've logged into Bluemix. So we're going to pick up the action at this point where you've logged into Bluemix and are starting the lab. So the instructions tell you to create a space called Cloudant Lab. So we'll do that. Hit create. And now we're in our Cloudant Lab space. Now the next thing that you're instructed to do is to create an instance of the Cloudant NoSQL database service. So we'll go to the catalog. Want to look at data and analytics services. Let's scroll around until we find the Cloudant NoSQL DB service. So I'll click on that, and I can click create. Once a service is created, you can see I have a launch icon at the bottom. So this will launch the dashboard for this service, and it takes me into the Cloudant dashboard. Next thing I need to do is to add a new database. So we're adding a database called cars. And as you can see, our database has been created. Now I want to go back to my Bluemix dashboard and click on back to dashboard and scroll down to my services. If I select my service here, you can see that on the left it says service credentials. So these are the credentials for this particular instance of Cloudant. And I want to find the URL for the database. This will include the user ID and password, as well as the host name of my Cloudant instance. So next we'll go to our favorite text editor, and we need to replace the username, password, and host name for Cloudant that's in the upload.bat file that came with the zip file that you downloaded earlier. So let's go ahead and select just that part. Again, the format is user :password @ and then a host name followed by cloudant.com. So let's go ahead and replace that with the value that we copied out of Bluemix. As you can see, it's fairly long because their usernames and passwords are fairly long. So I want to save that. And now I'll be able to run this batch file, and it will go against the instance of Cloudant that I just created in Bluemix. So once we've edited upload.bat, we can go to the folder in which it resides and run it. And it will upload some JSON documents that populate the database. And as you can see, the upload is complete, it's successful, and there are no errors. And now let's look at the output file that's generated. So we'll go ahead and use the type command and look at the file called output. And this is the actual data return from the Cloudant API calls to populate the database with some data. So now let's go back to the Cloudant dashboard, and as the instructions say, we want to create a new design doc. We're going to create a new view. Design document's name is query, name is price, and And we're asked to modify the map function. And the reduce function is count. And with those changes, we do save and build index. So now let's go ahead and create another view. And this view is called make. Next, we need to go look at our service credentials again because we want to get the host name and then use our browser to make some calls against the secondary indexes that we just created. So we want to grab the host, then go to our browser and create a new tab. We can paste. We need to prepend the HTTPS and append the details of the view and the database. And there you see we get back some nicely formatted JSON, which is the result of calling this view. Next, we'll do another view. So we'll simply modify the URL and we'll modify the URL and add a start and ending key. Once we've done that, we can run the query again. So that first key range gave us all the documents because it included all the keys, but now we're going to specify a narrow range. And as you can see, we get back less data. So anything above 10,000 isn't included because we specified a range that ended with 10,000. Next, we'll do the make view. And as you can see, it returns all the makes and a count of each make. So in this example, there are 2 Audis, 2 BMWs, and 3 Hondas in the database. Next, we'll modify the URL to specify a specific make. As you can see, it only returns the BMWs. Next, we'll explore list functions. So we need to go back into our Cloudant dashboard and look at our design docs. And in particular, we want to edit our query design doc that we created earlier. So we'll go in there, find the second to last bracket, add a comma, and then paste the code that was given to us in the instructions. And again, this is creating a list, and lists allow you to format the MapReduce query results. So in this case, we'll return a grouping of makes and counts in a list format. So let's go ahead and save our changes. And now we want to go to our testing tab and modify the URL to call the list that we just created. The make an account are returned as a list. So let's quickly recap what we did in this lab walkthrough. We created a Cloudant SQL database instance in Bluemix. We then used curl to transfer some data from our local system to that Cloudant instance. We then went into that instance's database console and built some secondary indexes and then used some REST calls from our browser to actually see the data returned from calls to those indexes. Finally, we used the list function to show you how you can format the output of calls to secondary indexes.